Welcome to the Industry Insider, brought to you by PromoCorner. Each week, promotional product professionals Meg Erber, Jeff Franklin, and Stephen McFadden, along with special guests, will discuss industry news, trends, and events with a focus on educating the promotional products industry. The Industry Insider, the nerdy news you need to know.
Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of the Industry Insider, your promotional products podcast, where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA, and I'm joined today by three other lovely folks. But of course, before we get to them, we got to tell you about our fine sponsors for today. We are brought to you by our good friends over at Promotions East, and guess what? They've got a show coming up, don't they? Yeah, they sure do. It's going to be awesome. Promotions East, it's returning to the beautifully renovated Harrah's Resort in Atlantic City, October 2nd through the 4th. And as the largest branded merchandise and promotional products event in the Northeast, Promotions East features 2 floors of supplier exhibits interested with unique experiences, intertwined with unique experiences, tailored education, demos, interactive displays, and plenty of networking and socializing opportunities. New this year, SAGNY welcomes end buyers to the experience. Promotions East, along with their distributors, meeting suppliers and exploring products side by side. Limited booth space is still available. Visit promotionseast.com today for details and to sign up for special alerts and discounts. Registration will open in July. Use PEPODCAST23 for complimentary admission. Again, that's promotionseast.com, October 2nd through the 4th. At Harrah's in Atlantic City. It's going to be awesome. It was a good time last year. Finally back in SAGNY's control. We made some awesome changes. So really excited about Promotions East and what they're going to continue to do to tweak and make that show the best for sure. So why don't we say hi to Meg Erber. Meg, how are you?
I'm doing great. I was just going to add to it. I'm really excited too. I think this year is going to be even better than last year. And I'm pretty sure we're going to do a live podcast because I was able to rope Stephen in. He is 100% going to be there. He cannot escape it now.
when you're part of the production now, you got to be there. So
yeah. But otherwise, really good. Lots of travel lately. I know we've had a lot of pre-recorded shows. We're all on the road again. I was in Mexico for work. I'm just back and forth in the weekends up to Maine trying to get this house ready to rent. Still not ready yet, but so much work. But otherwise, how are you? How are you, Stephen and Jeff?
Go ahead, Stephen.
I'm doing great. I'm realizing that I can't Genie Plus or Lightning Lane myself through my emails or life. I just got back from Disney for the past 8 days. So
and that is your life. The Genie Plus is your entire life for 8 days. That's all you know. Yeah.
I mean, every food, ride, photo thing, I'm in it. We rope dropped 2 of the days. I mean, we were there from we didn't see the sun when we got there or left. We were
you're diehard.
It was a grind. It was a grind. But
well, I've got 2 little girls, but I don't know that I'll ever be taking them to Disney, man. It's just crazy expensive. And from everything that I hear, just lines galore and just not worth the money.
I don't know how to avoid those lines.
You have to take Steven. You have to take him with you.
I will Steve a shout out.
A whole lot of cash, apparently.
Yeah. We were there for my daughter who was dancing in Main Street Parade. So that was awesome, and they did such a good job. It was a fun experience. So
that is super cool.
That was
awesome.
Really cool.
How are you doing, Jeff? I mean, you look really, fresh cut, so fresh and so clean today. What was it?
Yeah, sure. Just I lowered the ears a little bit and shaved the beard, but all is well. All is well. But yeah, like you'd mentioned, we've everybody's traveling again, so we've had the last couple episodes pre-recorded, and it's I guess the last time we were actually together, even that was pre-recorded, but the day before was at Lead, which we're going to discuss today. We've got a special guest, Andrea Kramer with City Apparel out of Ohio. And we're going to talk about NALC and Lead because you were actually able to attend both, which is awesome. But Andrea, it is customary for us to give our special guests a good 3 to 4 minutes to introduce yourself, maybe tell us how you got started in the promotional products industry and what you've been up to since. So before we launch into the topic, why don't we start off there?
Well, thanks, Jeff. Stephen, I've got a question. How old are your kids?
10 and 5.
And how did it go? Was it seamless?
It was awesome. So we're kind of Disney pros before we got there. So like we've done it a couple times, but the age brackets, like every time you go as they get older, it's just a different experience because they can either ride more things or they're interested in characters or shows. And so like this one was a fun round because my youngest, who's 5, was just over 42 inches tall. So it was like she could ride basically all but 2 rides in all the parks. So
you couldn't go on Velociraptor, right? That was out.
The wrong park. That's Universal.
Okay.
Velocicoaster. We couldn't go on Aerosmith, Everest, the Yeti ride, and Tower of Terror. Those are the ones that are 48 inches. The rest are 42, and then all the other ones there's a couple 38s, and then no heights. But it was great. It was a great time.
That's awesome. I miss those days. So again, I'm Andrea with City Apparel and Merch. I'm a mother of 3. I'm an empty nester, and so I'm a little envious when I hear those stories of the magical kingdom or just spending time with the kids. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I'm an empty nester. I've got twin boy and girl that Libby is going into her senior year at Florida Gulf Coast in Fort Myers, Florida, living her very best life. And her twin brother is going into his senior year at Robert Morris in Pittsburgh, playing football. So he too is living his very best life. And then my oldest daughter, Kelsey, lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and she just joined the family biz about a year ago. She's an account manager for City Apparel and Merch. So you guys had asked about how I got into the business and in the industry, and it was by accident. But I've heard from everyone, once you get in, you can never get out, and it's a good thing, right? And I've also heard that it ends up being kind of a family business. All of the family members tend to join that path. But so when I joined my family business back in 1998, at the time, the company was a large uniform rental company, facility services, and retail dry cleaning stores. I had just finished my MBA, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I was a young mom and wanted to get out into the workforce. And so I joined the family business and did a little bit of everything. And after a few years, decided to go into selling the merchandise that my family was renting, right? So going out and selling uniforms or caps and jackets. And I would say a couple years in, we were selling a lot of Ashworth. That's kind of a blast from the past.
Wow.
They had invited me to join them in Vegas for a show that they were attending. And so I booked a ticket and headed out to Vegas and attended their suite. And when I completed my visit, I was really wowed by the presentation. But I walked downstairs and I realized there was this huge trade show going on. And I just wandered up and asked someone at the booth what this was all about. And they said, "This is PPAI, baby." I don't know if they said baby, but. And so
they should have.
And for a small fee of $500, you can walk through these doors and learn more about our industry. And that's essentially how I got into the promotional products world. Wow. It opened up my eyes to a whole nother world that I didn't even know existed, albeit my background was in marketing and organizational leadership. So I was super excited to see that there was a whole nother path other than just uniforms and jackets to sell to our customers. Then a few years in, we decided to start a separate branch of the organization called City Apparel, which eventually became City Apparel and Merch. And several years later, I bought the business. My family was kind enough to sell it to me about 7 years ago. And I branched out again and did some rebranding, bought a facility, brought on more employees. And here we are today. We have 14 employees, several DCX employees. I want to give a shout out to Delegate. They've been an amazing partner. And we are a little different and unique that we do in-house decoration with embroidery and heat transfers and such. And kind of our mainstay is e-commerce company stores. So we started our first uniform allowance program with Procter & Gamble in 2005. And that kind of opened our doors to the e-commerce and company store pathway.
Wow.
So a lot.
You came right in and then just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Stephen also uses Delegate CX.
Yep.
So
Well,
yeah, we
yeah.
love Michael. We love that company. They seem to be a great company. Well, Jeff and I just happened to meet you during our dine around for Lead back in early June, and we were just blown away by your charisma, and we were like, we have to get her on the podcast. So we are so thankful that you came on to actually talk about NALC and Lead from your perspective. Jeff, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I mean, I've attended Lead several times, probably about 5 in person, and then I think I did the first year that they did it virtually, and then kind of skipped out the last year or two. But was super excited to have it back in person again. I think it's a very unique experience to be able to attend Lead, and I know that we've discussed it on the podcast before. We've had Maurice on from PPAI to sort of discuss how to get involved if you're ever interested in attending, and I would definitely recommend that you do. It's a great experience. First of all, it's really cool just to see what PPAI does, the issues that they're lobbying on behalf of the industry for, and things like that. And plus, the dine around. I mean, the Lead was actually the first time that I've ever been part of a dine around before. Not this year, but in the past. And just a tremendous experience, because you would never necessarily be in those collisions with people together any other way other than
Jeff,
doing
honestly, that was a collision when we got into a car together. Do you guys remember how our night started off?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been worse. I think there was like 3 other people that wanted to jump in the car with us as well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was an awesome experience. And of course, I love the dine arounds. I love Lead, but we're here to talk about NALC and Lead. And for those that don't know, NALC is the North American Leadership Conference, and Lead is Legislative Education and Action Day. And this is the first year that PPAI has done them in conjunction with one another. So, and Andrea, I'm sure that's why you guys stayed over to do Lead, right? Because it was just an easy, in and out, able to do both things. So what were sort of your thoughts? Because you've done NALC a couple times now, but a first timer for Lead. So why don't you give us a little bit of feedback from your perspective?
Yeah, I think NLAC this year was the best I've attended. I think I've been to the DC event in the past, maybe 4 years ago, but the location was amazing. We were all stationed right across the street from the White House, all the monuments, memorials. So that was pretty amazing. But the content this year, I think, bar none, was the best that they've offered to this particular event. Speakers were great. Content was amazing, fast-paced. And so we were super happy to be a part of NALC this year, and especially with the location and then leading us into Lead. I've always been interested in Lead, but I think that just being there kind of was a good segue for us. Like you mentioned, this was our first Lead event, or my first Lead event. We also had our CFO join us. Which, did you guys meet Michael by chance?
Was he the one that was sitting next to you at dinner?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, it would have had to. There was only 2 of you from City Apparel, and yes, we were both
well, remember, I went on a couple dine arounds leading up to Lead night. So I remember where that all landed. And we did kind of start off with a bang, right? The person that was leading our dine around ended up having to take a separate ride, and there was a lot of activity heading to the restaurant. So, back to the dine around, I just want to share that was a great experience for us as well. I think dine arounds are just such a great format for our industry events, so we can have those real conversations and get to know each other instead of being across, a conference room table or passing each other in the halls. So I think, being with you guys honestly made myself and Michael a lot more comfortable about what the next day was going to look like. Although we've seen pictures and, some, promotions about Lead in the past, you really can't visualize it until you're there, and certainly speak to people that have had previous experience. And you guys were so pumped about it. There was no place for us to go but up to, go out there and show DC what PPAI is all about. So
That's amazing. That's really amazing.
I don't
So-
know about you guys. Did you guys have, how many meetings did you guys have?
Well, go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Meg, how many meetings did you have?
I
Meg?
forgot, Meg. I forgot.
No, it's okay. So I actually woke up with if you guys were in DC that day or even in anywhere on the Northeast, there was a layer of smoke that was covering everything. You couldn't even breathe. People had
From the
masks
Canadian
on.
wildfires.
From the Canadian
Yeah.
wildfires, right? So I don't know
If
if
you
that had just triggered a migraine for me, but I have been having migraines nonstop for the last maybe month and a half, 2 months, to the point where this was probably one of the worst ones. And I threw up the next afternoon, like between, so I had to go to CVS. The manager was like, basically to like take care of me, just to get me the Excedrin and check me out. It was so bad. I really had to rely on the kindness of strangers that day. I was like so embarrassed. I was upset. I saw Jill and I'm like, I feel like I'm letting people down. I physically just couldn't even put a sentence together. I had such a bad migraine, and I ended up going down and laying down before I made my way out of there around 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then just went right home and went to bed. I just had the worst migraine, and it just sucks. So I missed them all, unfortunately, but Jeff didn't.
Yeah, the Canadian wildfires were crazy.
Yeah.
If you were standing at the Capitol, you couldn't see the monument.
Yeah.
That's how crazy thick
Wow.
it was. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really rough.
And I didn't even like put the two and two together that it was possibly the smoke. I've just been getting them, but I think that smoke really just triggered me hardcore. But it was
No
bad. It was really bad.
Andrea, I was very interested to hear that you actually liked the location, and I don't know if that was just because of NALC and where it was at and all that, but I think and I'll be a little bit more critical. I really think that it's a great idea to do the two events together like that. But I feel like Lead kind of took a back seat I don't want to say it took a back seat to the staff, but it felt like it was a little bit of an afterthought because they were still wrapping up NALC, if that makes sense. So things didn't go out very quickly. It could have been, a little bit more organized in that sense. But then the location for me personally, as a lead person, was a little bit less than stellar, just because before, when we were at Lead, we were literally across a block away from the Capitol.
Oh, you're talking about the hotel location.
Yeah, so trying to get to your meeting was very, very easy. This time to get to your meetings, you got to take an Uber, and it's several miles down the road because you're at the White House instead of at the Capitol building.
Right.
So there's some things that could be improved, and I'm sure that this being the first year that they've done them together, their PPI is usually very good about taking on feedback and making those improvements. So hopefully, moving forward, they'll take some of those things into consideration. But I loved it. I like the fact that it exposed Lead to people that wouldn't necessarily get that chance or wouldn't necessarily take that chance just for Lead. So I thought it was really cool. We only had 2 meetings, and I don't know if that had to do with the time of the year or what. Because typically we would have. What are you laughing about, Meg?
Nothing, Steven. He really wants to say something.
So, you asked me a question. I'm answering it.
Oh no, I know.
So
I'm just
we
laughing.
only
at
had
Steven.
2 meetings. Normally, in past years, we've had like 6 or 7 meetings with the staffers, and so it was a little bit light this year, but it was good.
Awesome.
Steven,
Yes.
even
Hey guys. So I know when we've done some of the recaps for certain events, one of the things that we always try to do is try to figure out what did we miss by not being there, or what would someone not know, having not attended. So I was hoping maybe all of you, I guess, could share a takeaway from both of them, for those that attended Lead and for those that attended NALC. So was there any, I guess we'll go in order, right? So NALC first. So were there any kind of standouts as far as takeaways from the education sessions or the meetings or anything that we think would be of note to kind of let the industry know?
There was a lot of talk about supply chain and our relationship with China. They had a financial speaker on that topic that, I think everyone can understand the complications of being tied to, both a Chinese-owned organization, but also, organizations that are within the borders of China. The diplomatic and political, ramifications of what's going on there, and that we're all kind of at risk, basically, as long as we have relations, in that country. We talked about how politics played into, outside of China and our organization, which was also a great, segue for LEAD, just kind of prepping and understanding the tie. They had Bob Woodward speak, which was our opening presenter, and he was fantastic. Just talking about, his experience in politics and writing, just a lot of great history and great stories. We had some industry members speak on different topics, from customer experience to customer service, employee engagement. I really felt that all the topics were really fruitful, and had some good and easy action items to take away. I mean, that's important. We all spend a lot of time and money going to these events. And if there aren't palatable, exit or actionable items, it's kind of, great. I spent 2 days catching up with people. In fact, I hate to say it, but I did just pull out my notebook from the event to make sure that I could start to review, the action items I want to take from the event. So overall, and then great networking. I mean, just meeting new people, meeting your people right within the industry was just a wonderful experience.
It sounds like it. I mean, everyone that was there, it was nice, and I actually didn't mind seeing the crossover with NALC and LEAD, because I got to see a bunch of people that I just miss. I only get to see them in Vegas, but again, that's just me and the relationship aspect of it. But I am glad that I got to do the dine around. I got to meet Andrea and hear her story, and we're just really excited to have you here and hear your perspective on everything. But in the past, and the reason why I wanted to go was a lot of selfish reasons. I really wanted to learn from my peers that were going to be in my group, and from people like Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. And I really think it's important to know what's going on in the industry and be able to kind of speak to it from your, like when we bring people in and we all have different perspectives. So I was really excited to be there, and I'm just beyond disappointed that I didn't get a chance to continue on that day. So Jeff, what were your biggest takeaways?
So, I mean, like I said, the dine around is always, from a pure selfish standpoint, the networking and socialization from the dine around is always the highlight, in my opinion. And that's no different this year. It's interesting, like I said, to always see the issues that PPAI is taking a stance on for the industry and lobbying on behalf of the industry for. Like we talked about the COOL Act, which is the country of origin labeling online act. So basically they're trying to pass legislation to have any product that's sold online have the country of origin listed on it. And of course, with the complexities of our supply chain in our industry, it's really difficult to do. So several suppliers made it a point to talk about how, it's really difficult to say that, this particular item that you're getting is going to come from, this roll of fabric or that roll of whatever, because those rolls of fabric for that, particular instance could be coming from different countries. They don't know. They're using a various supply chain that you can't really nail it down. So they just, we're asking basically for the flexibility to list multiple sources and things like that. So it's really cool to always meet with the staffers and, to know what those asks are and to make those asks. And then we actually had a really good meeting. The last meeting that we had, we had Josh Ellis with us, as well as Corey Halliburton, which is PPAI's attorney. And so they both joined us for that meeting, as well as our other companion in our group. And just asked tremendous questions as far as like, hey, what do you guys typically get? Those staffers are in meetings like all day, all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you ever retain anything that is being brought up in meetings? And really what it came down to, they said, it comes down to the follow-up, because, we'll have these meetings and maybe 1% of the people that we actually meet with will follow up with us. And, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So,
hey, so Jeff, walk me through one of those meetings or whoever attended. Because
Yeah.
I've never done it. I'm just curious. So you walk in, do you have a certain amount of time? Do you have to present an agenda before you walk in? Do they give you a certain number of topics, or do they just let you talk and then when time's up, time's up? Like, how's it work?
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
The app that you're providing, so you're given a login for lead day, and it actually shows you your agenda and who you're meeting with, and what their stance is. And then prior to the lead event, we had a Teams call or a Zoom call about the topics, and then that morning you also. Oh, look, she's showing the app.
It's not working. Never mind. I was trying to show the app. It was really nice for them to put together, by the way. Really nice.
They put together, kind of your talking points and examples, and PPA also provided promotional products, which I should have brought in here to use as an example. One comment to that, though, I was underwhelmed with the promotional products that we were using as examples. Meg, Jeff, I don't know if you recall, we had those, the drinkware that say promotional products work. We are all talking about not just slapping a logo on something, making something feel branded, retail, something that we would go and buy off of a shelf. And, unfortunately, I don't think that, the promo products that we used for that day really spoke to what we do as a, industry. I had
same. Because that makes it or break it sometimes. Like if someone hands you something that you're not going to use, you're just going to throw it away and not. It's like, it's just ended up in the trash where we've been fighting against. So
that was exactly it. I actually don't know that we end up leaving any of the items. We just use them as tools. But as the day went on, I just started using promotional products that were in my bag. I've got like a computer case and, a pen. I had my own items that I kind of use as examples. But we had six meetings. And so I went from like 0 to not having any experience to like every hour, we were in a meeting with someone new, and our experience kind of was full spectrum. Our very first meeting was with Sherrod Brown's office, and his staffers were very aware of both the topics that we, brought to the table, and they were very interactive. I'm not going to mention the new senator that we met with later on that morning. His staffer had no clue what we were talking about, and I felt like we were just, they were just checking off a list, meeting with us. I guess I was disappointed. I thought we might be meeting directly with the senators and the congressmen, but we were surprised. Congressman Latta did meet with us. He was my second to last meeting. And I don't know if you guys saw the articles about LEAD, but Mike and I were actually the poster children. So we were the picture on all the PPA articles with Congressman Latta, and, they got action shots of us showing promo. And
that's really cool. We'll have to find them and post this in the chat when this goes live tomorrow.
Yeah.
I do have one follow-up to some of the outline, because I know we're kind of wrapping up here on time. But
sorry, Jeff.
No, you're fine.
You're the guest.
When you guys were talking about the app, and you had mentioned that the topics and the opinions are given. Just help me out here, because when I think politics, I think that there's lots of opinions to have on certain topics, right? So are these all like industry neutral, kind of politically agnostic topics where you can walk in pretty neutral, or are there some things where you're like, I don't really know that I'm comfortable taking this stance for our industry? Maybe I think differently. Like, how do you walk into something like that? Yeah.
I'll let Andrea, because go ahead, Andrea.
I mean, the Cool Act was a no-brainer. And honestly, at the end of the day, how are they going to police it? Right. I mean, it's a typical political agenda where they're just trying to put roadblocks in, but they're not really, able to execute. So that was kind of a no-brainer for everyone that we talked to. The other topic was about contract employees. And that was, I don't think, politically neutral, right? So if you lean more towards the left, you're more focused on, and really what we learned from our very first meeting was about the opportunity for unionization, right? So when you remove that word, though, and talk more about the opportunity for contract employees to have the opportunity to collectively communicate and gather together to share any concerns, that makes sense. But once we had a better understanding of, the left side's opinion in regards to it, we explain that contract employees in our industry are very much different than what you're seeing like in the tech world, right? So what their concern is, I'm a large employer, I lay off 5,000 employees, but turn around and hire them as a contract employee, so I don't have to pay them as much and they don't get benefits, right? Our industry is much different. The contract employees you're seeing are like multi-line reps that they are basically they're living their best lives. They're business owners. They're demanding, their pay and their schedule. So once we kind of navigated that, what the difference was between one industry and ours, it made a little bit more sense for them.
So if I can dumb it down for myself enough, so is it fair to say that kind of our industry gets caught up with being stuck in the middle of why some things are designed for certain industries, but by default we would then fall under them because we use some of the same
all the time.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where our job all of our jobs at Lead are to then say, hey, just when you do this, you need to consider our industry because this is how it affects us, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
I would say that PPAI is very careful about what stances they tend to take from a political spectrum when it comes to lobbying. So they're, and I think Dale even talked about this, and certainly I know Maurice has discussed it. But they weigh everything very heavily. They don't want to necessarily be pro for something that could be detrimental to, even if it's a small group of people within the industry. So they do tend to take a very neutral approach. And Andre, I think what you were talking about or referring to was the PRO Act, which was what we were sort of against because of one particular statement that's in the PRO Act, which is about the independent contractors.
Exactly.
And
yep.
The ask for that was essentially just to have crap. Now I'm forgetting the word. It's an exemption or an exception for our industry specifically, because like you said, the independent contractors are in our industry. First of all, there's tens of thousands of them between multi-line reps, suppliers. There's a lot of salespeople for distributors that are considered independent contractors. So it would affect tens of thousands of people.
Delegate employees, I guess those are contract employees, right?
Yeah, but they're in another country, though. Does it affect them?
Yeah.
Well, we're contracted through the U.S. to international. I don't know how that would work.
VJ's a contractor. He's a contractor through Merck because they don't want to hire him on, so they pay.
I understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I know the PRO Act is basically targeting gig economy, like Uber and things like that. So we're not part of gig economy. We're very particular in the wording about saying they don't take a stance one way or the other with PRO Act, except for this part, and essentially just asking for an exception, very similar to real estate agents. How real estate agents are independent.
You got this, Jeff.
Yeah, they've got.
I learn from him sometimes. I mean, I'll give it to him.
Look, I'm going to take it because I don't get it very often.
And that is true.
But yeah, Stephen, typically there's 3 or 4 things that they would, have you go to the staffers with. And Andrea, you're actually very fortunate that you got to meet one of the congressmen, because in 5 years of doing it, I've always met with staffers. So, but they're really the ones that are getting stuff done anyways.
Well, he actually said he wanted to come see our facility, and I let PPAI know, and they said, let us know when he shows up. We're going to come here and be a part of that introduction. Nice. So it was
that is awesome. Yeah, that is really awesome. Yeah, let us know too. Maybe we can have some type of follow up with it. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Really Andrea, thank you so much. I think having you there, it was extremely valuable for not only us here, but for the entire industry. You seem very passionate about it. You learned something, and if that's the only thing that happened, that was a great takeaway in itself. So, thank you for just having your that hat on. That's for the betterment of this industry. We appreciate it.
It was a blast.
Oh, good.
And Jeff and Meg, thank you both for putting us at ease, because like I said, going into anything that you've had no exposure to, I think at the end of the day, I said to myself, I could see myself doing this more often.
Awesome.
Exciting to be able to meet with people and be impactful. At the end of the day, I think that these acts, the people putting them together don't realize the unintended consequences, right? And so it was our opportunity as an industry to share our voice and show that we really are all partners in this. So,
100%.
Yeah, Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Your time has been awesome. Really great to get the feedback from NALC and then also a first timer's perspective from Lead. So really cool. Stephen, Meg, anything else to add before we wrap up? No?
All good here.
All right, cool. Well, again, this episode was brought to you by our good friends over at Promotions East. Of course, we're returning to the beautifully renovated Harrah's Resort in Atlantic City, October 2nd through the 4th, and as the largest branded merchandise and promotional products event on the Northeast. Promotions East features 2 floors of supplier exhibits and with unique experiences, tailored education, demos, interactive displays, and plenty of networking and socializing opportunities. New this year, SAGNY welcomes end buyers to the experience. And Promotions East, along with their distributors, meeting suppliers and exploring products side by side. Limited booth space is still available, so visit promotionseast.com today for details and to sign up for special alerts and discounts. Registration will be open in July. Use code PEPODCAST23 for complimentary admission. Again, that's promotionseast.com, October 2nd through the 4th at Harrah's Atlantic City. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. It was really, really fun to have you, and hopefully we'll have you again down the road sometime.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good
All right,
to
guys.
see you.
Yep. Until next time, take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of PromoCorner's Industry Insider. For more great content from industry thought leaders, including podcasts, blogs, and videos, visit promocorner.com.